The Galactic Empire thought humanity would kneel when they slaughtered 7 million mothers, live for the galaxy to witness. They were wrong, because when humans fight, they fight with every heartbeat, every memory, every ounce of rage. Where are you watching this from? If you love stories of human defiance, subscribe now for more. The galaxy went silent for a moment that would never be forgotten. 7 million mothers, human, alien-born, every one of them a life-giver, a protector, were executed on a live broadcast, their screams echoing through billions of comms channels, their faces frozen in terror for all civilizations to witness. The Galactic Empire believed it was a demonstration of power, a warning to Earth and all who dared sympathize with humanity. They were wrong. The horror ignited something the Empire could not have predicted. Rage, calculated and unstoppable. Where are you watching this from? If you feel the fury, if you feel the injustice, subscribe now, because humanity has only begun to fight back. Across Earth and its colonies, the first reactions were disbelief, numbness, and an unshakable grief. Families clutched each other, unable to comprehend the scale of the atrocity. Governments convened emergency sessions, heads of state and military leaders struggling to form words that could even approach the horror. News anchors could barely speak, their voices trembling as images of the massacre filled every screen. The Empire's message was clear. Humans are nothing. We control life itself. Resistance is futile. But the very act of broadcasting such cruelty had planted the seeds of its own destruction. Humans did not cower. Humans did not beg. Humans planned. On the streets of Earth's great cities, people stopped. Mothers hugged children tighter. Soldiers clenched their fists. Civilians watched the feed over and over, some weeping, some shaking with silent rage. Across the colonies, the same scene unfolded. The memory of the mothers, mercilessly slaughtered, would not fade. It would fuel the coming storm. Citizens sent messages to leaders, to generals, to anyone with power, demanding justice. Do not let them get away with this, they wrote. Not one life should be lost in vain. Strike back. And for the first time in centuries, Earth and its people were united not by fear, but by an unbreakable, shared resolve. In the halls of command, the leaders of Earth convened in silence before erupting into action. Admiral Kale, a veteran of countless galactic skirmishes, stared at the hollow feed, his jaw tight. They've crossed a line they can never return from, he said, voice low but deadly. Scientists, strategists, and military officers crowded around, mapping the Empire's fleets, their defenses, their vulnerabilities. Every report was met with a single thought. The Empire underestimated humans. They always had. The broadcast that was meant to break morale instead sharpened focus, concentrated minds, and birthed a plan that would shock the galaxy. No negotiation. No waiting. Operation Alien Extinct would not be a warning. It would be a reckoning. Every human on Earth and its colonies understood the stakes. The Empire's broadcast had been designed to humiliate, to intimidate, to show that human life could be manipulated, destroyed, and displayed for amusement. Instead, it became a rallying cry. Soldiers drilled relentlessly, engineers pushed technology beyond its limits, and spies scoured every corner of alien space for secrets. The memory of the 7 million mothers, names unknown to most, faces fading too quickly, drove every human decision. The strategy meetings were ruthless, precise. Every potential weakness of the Empire was dissected, every flaw catalogued, and every opportunity noted. Humanity was no longer merely defending itself. Humanity was preparing to erase the threat entirely. The broadcast had ripple effects far beyond Earth. Neutral planets, previously hesitant to align with humans, now sent covert messages of support, some providing intelligence, others offering technology. The galaxy, once indifferent, watched in awe and horror as humans transformed grief into power. Alien allies who had long doubted humanity's potential now realized that humans were not merely survivors. They were a force of retribution. The Empire, arrogant and overconfident, had ignited a fire it could not control. Even within the Empire's own ranks, doubt began to seep in. Officers whispered of human unpredictability, of a species capable of extraordinary cunning and relentless focus when driven by moral outrage. Amidst the chaos, Earth's leaders communicated a message of resolve, short and sharp. The mother's blood will not go unanswered. The Empire will pay. It was not a threat for show. It was a promise. Across every human colony, across every fleet and installation, there was a shared understanding. They were about to do what no one believed possible. Humans, against impossible odds, would take the fight to the Empire, and they would do so with a precision, ingenuity, and ruthlessness that the galaxy had never witnessed. In every human heart burned the same thought. The Empire had shown the galaxy its cruelty, but it had also shown humanity its strength. By committing the unthinkable, the Empire had underestimated the one thing humans never lacked: resolve. From engineers to generals, from children to war veterans, from ordinary citizens to the sharpest minds of Earth, every human understood the truth. Operation Alien Extinct would be humanity's answer, and there would be no mercy, no hesitation, and no second chances. And as the first signals of Earth's preparation began to spread through hidden channels, the Empire, still basking in its assumed dominance, remained blind to the storm approaching their systems. They had taken 7 million mothers, but in doing so, they had awakened a species that would not rest, a species that would retaliate not just for survival, but for every stolen heartbeat, every extinguished life, every mother who had given the universe her love only to be murdered for spectacle. The galaxy was about to witness a lesson it would never forget. Wherever you are watching this from, remember, this is only the beginning. If you felt the anger, the horror, the pride, and the unstoppable courage in this story, subscribe now and join humanity's fight. Comment below with your city, your planet, your corner of the universe. Let the world see that humans are everywhere, and every human stands ready to fight when injustice strikes. Earth had no time to mourn. The broadcast of 7 million mothers' deaths had ignited fury, but grief alone would not win a war. Humanity had to act, and it had to act with precision. Within hours, hidden fleets activated, colossal ships long kept secret from the galaxy, designed not just for defense, but for strategic annihilation. Every engineer, every scientist, every strategist knew the stakes. This was not retaliation for ego, not a declaration of war for fame. This was the beginning of humanity's reckoning, and it would leave no doubt that the Empire had underestimated the resolve of those they had tried to humiliate. Advanced weaponry long whispered about in conspiracy theories suddenly became reality. Ships carried AI systems capable of predictive warfare, algorithms that could anticipate moves before they were made, and weapons that manipulated gravity, energy, and time in ways no alien had ever experienced. Engineers worked around the clock, their minds pushed to the limits, fueled by memories of mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives who had been slaughtered for nothing more than being human. Every invention, every tactical innovation was designed for one purpose: to ensure that the Empire could never claim victory, never claim dominance, never claim the right to underestimate humanity again. Commanders drilled relentlessly. Every officer, every soldier, every operative understood that mistakes would not be forgiven. Humans were preparing to strike the Empire at its core, but precision was key. Intelligence reports scoured the galaxy for weak points. Supply lines were mapped, communication networks intercepted, and alliances probed. Every plan accounted for the Empire's arrogance, its overconfidence, and its hubris. Humans did not underestimate the enemy, but they did exploit every flaw. The difference between them and the Empire was simple. Humans never stopped learning, never stopped adapting, and never allowed fear to dictate action. Every human involved in the operation carried a personal reason to fight. Some were survivors, children who had lost parents to Empire cruelty. Some were veterans, hardened by conflict, now burning with righteous vengeance. Some were scientists who had devoted their lives to progress, now weaponizing knowledge against those who sought to erase humanity. Each person understood that Operation Alien Extinct was more than a mission. It was justice, it was honor, and it was a statement to the galaxy. Humans would not only survive, they would dominate when their loved ones were threatened. In preparation, Earth coordinated communication across millions of channels. Drones, satellites, and covert networks relayed intelligence to every fleet, every installation. Each human command unit acted as both observer and executor, ready to strike the moment a weakness appeared. The Empire believed itself untouchable, confident in fleets that dwarfed human numbers. But humans did not fight with size alone. They fought with strategy, with cunning, with an understanding of risk and reward that no Empire calculations had ever accounted for. Every decision, every strike, every maneuver was designed to shatter not just their forces, but their confidence, their control, and their arrogance. Scientists revealed breakthroughs that even the most imaginative humans had doubted possible. Ships cloaked in near invisibility, weapons that could bypass shields, AI that could manipulate enemy sensors. These were no longer theoretical concepts. They were deployed, tested, and ready to strike. Humans had turned grief into innovation, pain into power, and outrage into execution. Nothing the Empire had seen could compare. They had treated humans as pawns, as disposable. Now humans were masters of the board, moving pieces with precision and speed that left enemies scrambling, confused, and terrified. While technology advanced, human emotion remained the invisible weapon. Every decision was fueled by the memory of those lost. Every calculation had a heart behind it. Generals, scientists, pilots, and soldiers were unified not just by orders, but by a visceral, unshakable desire to avenge. There was no hesitation. There was no fear. Every human knew that failure was not an option, because failure meant betrayal to the 7 million mothers, and betrayal was a word humanity would never allow the Empire to understand as weakness. The Empire had made one fatal mistake. They believed humans could be intimidated, controlled, or broken. But the humans preparing Operation Alien Extinct did not see themselves as victims. They saw themselves as the reckoning. Across every laboratory, command center, and fleet, humans worked with one thought. The Empire had crossed a line, and it would pay with every system it had ever claimed. Communications were encrypted, supply routes were secured, and contingency plans mapped decades ahead. Every step was calculated, every risk measured, and every strike prepared with surgical precision. Humans were not charging blindly. They were planning an extinction-level retaliation. And as fleets mobilized, as AI processed every possible scenario, as scientists finalized final prototypes of weapons that defied comprehension, humanity remained calm in its fury. The Empire could broadcast death. Humans could broadcast survival, victory, and retribution. Every message sent in secret carried one warning: underestimate humans at your own peril. Every soldier, every commander, every citizen understood the truth. The Empire had committed an atrocity, and the humans of Earth were about to respond in a way the galaxy would never forget. Wherever you are watching this from, feel the preparation, the determination, and the relentless drive that fuels humanity. If you are captivated by stories where humans rise from grief to power, subscribe now for more. Comment below where you are watching from and join the ranks of those who know humanity never bows, never breaks, and never forgets. The first strike hit like lightning across the galaxy. Humans moved faster than the Empire had ever anticipated, targeting critical points with calculated precision. Entire supply chains vanished before alarms could even sound. Fleets dissolved into chaos, and communications were intercepted and rewritten by humans who had anticipated every signal. The Empire had assumed its dominance was unshakable, but within hours, it became painfully clear that humans had prepared for this moment for far longer than anyone had imagined. Every step was deliberate, every strike intentional, every move designed to shatter the Empire's perception of control. Earth's fleets, small in number but unmatched in strategy, moved with a synchronicity that stunned observers. AI-guided ships maneuvered through hostile space with flawless coordination, bypassing defenses that had never been breached. Humans did not simply attack. They outmaneuvered, outwitted, and outlasted. Imperial commanders, confident in their overwhelming numbers, watched as decades of planning unraveled in minutes. The shock was not just tactical, it was psychological. The Empire had believed humans were reactive, predictable, and emotional. They had forgotten that grief and rage, when focused, became a weapon stronger than any fleet or cannon. Every target struck by humanity sent a message. Underestimation comes at a cost. Imperial generals had no time to adapt, no time to regroup, no time to hide from the precision that humans wielded like a blade. Earth's intelligence had mapped every vulnerability, every blind spot, every weakness, and humans exploited each with merciless accuracy. The initial devastation was total, but it was only the beginning. Every loss the Empire suffered was amplified by the memory of the 7 million mothers, driving humans forward with relentless determination. There was no hesitation, no questioning. Victory was a certainty, and the Empire was learning its mistakes too late. The galaxy could only watch as humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to predict and counter enemy strategies. Every ambush the Empire tried to set was already anticipated. Every fleet movement, every defensive adjustment, every desperate maneuver was met with a counter the Empire could not have foreseen. Humans fought not only with weapons but with understanding, intellect, and emotion fused into a single unstoppable force. Alien observers, who had long dismissed humanity as primitive, were forced to reconsider their assumptions. Humans were no longer just survivors, they were predators, precise, ruthless, and unstoppable. The first wave of attacks also carried a deeply personal weight. Soldiers remembered the mothers who had been killed, mothers who had once been their friends, neighbors, or family. Every missile fired, every fleet maneuver executed, every strike calculated carried their memory. Humans had transformed mourning into methodical vengeance. The Empire had believed that public executions would break humanity's will. Instead, it became the fuel that made them lethal. Every action was driven by outrage, by love, by grief turned into unstoppable force. The Empire was not facing soldiers. It was facing the wrath of every mother they had silenced. As reports of the first strike spread through imperial channels, panic began to replace confidence. Generals who had spent lifetimes planning campaigns suddenly found themselves outpaced, outthought, and outmatched. Fleets that had been considered invincible were now targets of calculated annihilation. Each human move was deliberate, precise, and devastating. The Empire realized too late that humans were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to eradicate every chance of further aggression. The first strike was not a warning. It was proof that humanity would stop at nothing to reclaim what had been stolen, to avenge what had been lost, and to prove that no atrocity could ever go unanswered. Humanity's approach was methodical. Attacks were sequenced with perfect timing, coordinated across light years with technology that defied understanding. Every maneuver accounted for enemy responses, every weapon system optimized for maximum disruption, every fleet commanded by officers whose only thought was success. There was no chaos in human strategy, only calculated, precise, and devastating efficiency. The Empire had treated humans as reactive, yet humans had turned their grief into proactive destruction, striking faster, smarter, and deadlier than anyone could have imagined. Despite the devastation, humans were not reckless. Every attack minimized unnecessary loss, while maximizing impact on the Empire's control. Humans understood that every life lost on their side was a sacrifice for justice, not vengeance. Every calculated strike reinforced humanity's supremacy in strategy, technology, and morality. Even as fleets fell, humans adapted, adjusted, and continued forward, relentless and unstoppable. Their brilliance was not just in weaponry. It was in the ability to combine intellect, emotion, and strategy into one seamless, unstoppable force that the Empire could neither predict nor counter. The Empire's first response was disbelief, quickly replaced by fear. Broadcasts intended to maintain morale now revealed panic and confusion. Ships turned back, commands faltered, and alliances within the Empire began to fray as doubts emerged. Humans were not simply destroying fleets. They were dismantling the very perception of imperial strength. Every strike sent a message: underestimate humanity, and pay a price that no civilization could bear. And yet, even as the Empire scrambled, humans continued to strike with precision, patience, and ruthlessness. Every victory, every conquered system, every destroyed fleet reinforced one unshakable truth: the Empire had awakened something it could not control. Humanity was no longer a threat to contain. They were a force to reckon with, unstoppable, unrelenting, and unstoppable in their pursuit of justice for the mothers who had been taken. Wherever you are watching this from, feel the power, the fury, and the precision of humanity at its peak. If you are captivated by stories of humans turning grief into unstoppable force, subscribe now for more. Comment below where you are watching from and witness the moment the galaxy realized humans could never be underestimated. Humanity refused to slow down. The first strike had shattered the Empire's confidence, but it was only the beginning. Every corner of the galaxy felt the consequences of Operation Alien Extinct, as Earth's forces systematically dismantled supply chains, communication networks, and military outposts. Every move was calculated, every decision precise, and every victory fueled by memory. The 7 million mothers whose lives had been stolen. The Empire believed humans would falter under pressure, but humans thrived when the odds were impossible, when every loss stung, and when justice demanded action. The speed and efficiency of humanity's retaliation became the new standard across the galaxy. Fleets that had once been considered unstoppable were rendered ineffective. Humans targeted weak points with surgical precision, bypassing overwhelming defenses and neutralizing entire fleets without warning. The Empire's attempts at counter-strategy failed repeatedly. Each effort met with anticipation, adaptation, and force multiplied by intelligence. Humans had studied their enemy in a way the Empire had never imagined. Every movement of the Empire was known, predicted, and turned against them. The galaxy began to witness a species that could transform suffering into absolute dominance. The psychological impact on the Empire was immediate. Officers whispered in fear about human foresight, about their relentless efficiency, about their uncanny ability to respond before any action was taken. Their arrogance, once so formidable, was now their greatest vulnerability. Humans attacked not only with weapons, but with strategy designed to demoralize, confuse, and destabilize. They exposed cracks in the Empire's control, forcing betrayal among alien factions, eroding trust, and ensuring that the Empire could never regain the confidence it had once held. Every victory inspired not only Earth, but also every corner of the galaxy that had underestimated humanity. Humanity's retaliation was not just physical, it was symbolic. Each strike was a message, a declaration that no atrocity would go unanswered. Soldiers and officers carried personal motivations, memories of loved ones, and a moral clarity that the Empire could never comprehend. The 7 million mothers were no longer just victims. They were symbols of human determination, their lives driving strategy, every calculation, and every act of precision. Humans did not fight for glory. They fought for justice, for vengeance, and for the unshakable principle that no one could harm them with impunity. Every escalation was met with innovation. Humans introduced technologies that the Empire had never encountered, weapons that manipulated gravity and energy, AI systems that could outthink entire fleets, and methods of warfare that combined strategy, foresight, and human intuition in ways impossible to counter. Every move was synchronized across light years, every fleet perfectly coordinated, every action backed by intelligence, resolve, and a refusal to fail. The Empire's attempts to predict human behavior were futile because humans acted not just logically, but with the force of moral conviction and unbreakable resolve. Civilians and observers across the galaxy could not believe the speed and efficiency of human retaliation. Once dismissed as primitive and emotional, humans now dominated the battlefield with intellect, precision, and emotion fused into a weapon that no empire could withstand. Every victory reinforced a message. Humanity would not only survive atrocities, they would ensure that no aggressor would ever act without consequence. The Empire's calculations, built on arrogance and dismissiveness, crumbled as humans continued to strike with unrelenting force. Every human participant understood the weight of their actions. Soldiers, pilots, and commanders remembered the mothers, their sacrifices, and the injustice inflicted upon them. Every decision was informed by memory, by moral outrage, and by a clarity that made hesitation impossible. Humans adapted on the fly, anticipating traps, exploiting weaknesses, and reshaping battlefields in ways the Empire had never considered. Every action was a lesson, a warning, and a demonstration that humans could take grief and convert it into unparalleled capability. The Empire's panic grew as their losses accumulated. Fleets scattered, colonies fell, and internal dissent grew. No communication line was safe. No stronghold could hold. Humans had become not just a military force, but a reckoning, an unstoppable tide that combined intellect, strategy, and emotion with a precision that made the Empire question every assumption they had ever held. Every victory, every strategic dismantling, sent a single message to the galaxy. Humans cannot be underestimated, ignored, or broken. Even as humans escalated their retaliation, their efficiency never wavered. Every operation was calculated, every strike intentional, every maneuver exact. There was no unnecessary destruction, only the execution of strategy with precision and purpose. Every human understood that failure was not an option, because every misstep would dishonor the mothers. Every hesitation would betray their memory, and every success would restore the balance stolen by the Empire's cruelty. The galaxy watched in awe and fear as humanity continued to rise. Where others saw only numbers and firepower, humans saw opportunity, strategy, and the moral imperative to act. Every retaliation brought Earth closer to its ultimate goal, a galaxy that recognized the consequences of underestimating humans. Every victory, no matter how small, carried the weight of history and the power of 7 million mothers who had been silenced. Humanity's escalation was unstoppable, precise, and absolute, and the Empire was learning a truth it would never forget. Humans do not forgive. Humans do not forget. Humans never lose when they fight for justice. Wherever you are watching this from, feel the power of humanity rising from grief into unstoppable action. If this story grips your heart, subscribe now for more. Comment below where you are watching from and stand witness to a species that never bows, never falters, and never forgets the price of injustice. The final strike was not merely an attack. It was humanity's declaration that injustice could never stand unchallenged. Every calculation, every plan, every fleet and weapon prepared over months of grief and strategy converged on the Empire's heart. Humans moved with precision, a force fueled not by hatred alone, but by the memory of 7 million mothers, by the promise of vengeance, and by the unshakable principle that no atrocity would go unanswered. The Empire believed itself untouchable, but it had underestimated the very essence of humanity, relentless, adaptive, and unstoppable when driven by purpose. Earth's forces executed their plan flawlessly. Fleets coordinated across light years, AI anticipating every counter, every maneuver, every possible contingency. Weapon systems, once theoretical, now shattered enemy defenses with calculated efficiency. Communications were intercepted and used against the Empire, spreading confusion and fear. Every move sent a message. The humans who had been victimized were now the architects of retribution, and their precision was beyond comprehension. The Empire's arrogance had created a weapon it could never predict, and humanity wielded it with ruthless intelligence. Every human involved knew what was at stake. Pilots, soldiers, strategists, and commanders carried the weight of the mother's memory in every action. This was no ordinary battle. Every strike was fueled by grief, courage, and the moral clarity that comes from being wronged beyond measure. Humans did not fight merely to destroy. They fought to restore balance, to ensure that no civilization, no empire, and no aggressor would ever presume they could harm humans with impunity. Each success reinforced their strength, and each calculated move brought the galaxy closer to understanding what it truly meant to underestimate humanity. The Empire's defenses, once considered impenetrable, crumbled under the weight of human ingenuity. Every layer of command and strategy was outmaneuvered. Fleets that had intimidated entire sectors were neutralized with surgical efficiency. Advanced weaponry designed to crush human resistance was turned against its creators. Alien leaders, once confident in their supremacy, now faced a species that had mastered technology, strategy, and emotion in ways they could not anticipate. Humans had become the storm, precise and unstoppable, sweeping through the Empire with a singular purpose, justice. Humanity's precision was matched by its adaptability. Every attempt by the Empire to regroup, retreat, or counterattack was anticipated and neutralized. Humans had planned for every scenario, yet they adapted in real time, adjusting strategies, predicting moves, and exploiting weaknesses with uncanny foresight. They combined intellect, experience, and emotional clarity to dominate every encounter. The Empire had expected reaction, but humans delivered orchestration, an unstoppable symphony of strategy and purpose designed to leave no doubt who held power. The final moments of the Empire's resistance were defined by chaos and disbelief. Leaders who had once ordered executions, who had celebrated atrocities, now faced the consequences of their arrogance. Systems fell, fleets were annihilated, and the communication networks that had broadcast the massacre of mothers now carried messages of humanity's triumph. There was no mercy for those who had believed themselves invincible. The humans who had been counted out, who had been underestimated, now held absolute power. The galaxy witnessed what it meant when a species fought with unrelenting courage, strategic brilliance, and moral certainty. Every victory carried weight. Humans honored the memory of the mothers not with speeches, but with results. Every planet liberated, every fleet destroyed, every command shattered was a tribute to lives stolen, a statement that the cost of underestimating humanity was total. Those who survived were left to witness the consequences of arrogance, to understand the price of cruelty, and to acknowledge the undeniable truth. Humans were not merely participants in the galaxy. They were arbiters of justice, relentless, ingenious, and unstoppable. Humanity's triumph was not chaotic, it was meticulous. Every action, every strategy, every strike demonstrated not only power but intelligence. Humans did not celebrate recklessly. They acknowledged their losses, honored their fallen, and ensured that every step forward was a testament to their skill, courage, and moral clarity. The Empire had sought to humiliate and destroy, but in doing so, it had forged a species that could never be ignored, never be underestimated, and never be broken. The final broadcast from Earth carried one simple, unshakable message to the galaxy. You have witnessed what humanity can achieve when pushed beyond reason. We honor those we have lost. We defend those we protect, and we will never allow injustice to stand. Every human across Earth and the colonies knew the truth. They had not only survived, but had dominated. They had avenged the 7 million mothers. They had proven that intelligence, courage, and moral clarity could overcome any tyranny, any empire, and any atrocity. Wherever you are watching this from, remember the lesson the galaxy learned. Never underestimate humanity, never ignore its power, and never challenge its resolve. If this story inspired you, subscribe now for more human triumphs. Comment below where you are watching from and stand witness to the species that never bows, never falters, and never forgets the price of injustice. Humanity has triumphed, and the galaxy will never be the same.